Hey guys, welcome back. So hopefully this year is the year of Halo 6, and considering that we've spent the last 2.5 years talking about it, I thought that I would finally give my ultimate answer, at least for now, as to whether or not we're gonna see the Flood in Halo 6. Before we start, super quick, I'm in the process of setting up a Patreon account right now, and I'm intrigued to know how many of you guys would maybe consider donating to it. Obviously, it's not necessary, you don't have to at all. If you do or if you don't, my content won't change in the slightest. I'm just curious because I'd like to see how many people would be willing to do so. So if you would donate, then leave a comment down below. Now, to be a tricky bastard, I'm gonna give you two answers to this question. The first is whether or not the Flood will have significance to Halo 6's story, and therefore have a sort of background presence. And to that, I answer yes. However, will we fight the Flood as an actual enemy in the campaign? No. Now, let me give my reasoning. Yes, I'm as sad as you are about the second answer, but let me cover the first one first. I think it's become abundantly clear that Cortana has the Logic Plague in some capacity. Now, whether this was always 343's intention when writing Halo 5, or if it's just something that they've diverted towards after the Halo 5 backlash, I honestly don't know. Honestly, my guess though would be that originally, they weren't going to go with anything like the Logic Plague, but after the insane backlash and outcries about just how bad Halo 5's Cortana was, they'll end up using the Logic Plague as the most logical explanation, and as a way to sort of make up for the big blunder that was Halo 5, because a lot of people want to see the Flood come back, and this will sort of be the entry level to that. So the evidence for Cortana having the Logic Plague, I think it's safe to say that there is evidence there. There is definitely some evidence. We've covered a shitload of it, dating back to even Halo 2, from the time that Cortana spent with the Gravemind on High Charity, to the little hints they gave us in Origins from Halo Legends, to Halo Evolutions, to the Primordial's promise of a final test when humanity were at their peak, or, something along those lines, in Primordium, to a bunch of very suspect quotes before you rescue her in Halo 3, to the information in the recent loot crate, and that's just what I can remember off the top of my head. That isn't even a coherent list of everything we've covered. That's just what I can remember on the spot right now, so to say that there's evidence there that supports it is just a little understatement. Now, granted, I don't believe that all of these teasers dating back to 2004 were always meant to lead into Cortana getting the Logic Plague, but they're all perfect to be sort of twisted into little breadcrumbs for it, and if my intuition does end up being correct, it'll be pretty fucking awesome going back through all the years, looking at all of these breadcrumbs that were laid out for us that ultimately led to the Logic Plague. All of these sort of subtle little Easter eggs that led to the biggest character change in Halo history were there all along. And if it does happen, that's gonna make for a pretty cool lead up to what was previously one of the worst decisions with a character in the franchise's history. Sadly though, I do think that's as far as they're going to go with the Flood in Halo 6's story. Reason being, Halo's enemies right now are in a pretty bad state. The Covenant are definitely still fun to fight, but they were complemented really well by the Flood and the Sentinels in the original trilogy. Now granted, the Flood weren't always everyone's favourite enemy to fight, but they offered a sort of complete different playstyle compared to the Covenant. You had to approach them in a totally different way. Now, 343's attempt at doing that with another enemy faction, the Prometheans, hasn't exactly been that successful so far. In Halo 4, they were practically identical to the Covenant. Crawlers were grunts, Knights were elites, and Watchers sort of worked like jackals. Nothing really that new or refreshing, and the few new additions that they did give them, like the Watcher respawning Knights and throwing grenades back, and Knights teleporting everywhere, just end up getting on people's nerves, and they weren't exactly received well. These problems were addressed with Halo 5, and the Knights were made to be more like hunters kind of. And overall, I did like what they did with them. They felt more unique to fight than the rest of the Prometheans. But sadly though, the rest of the Prometheans were still boring to fight. They remained the same, and the soldiers just replaced the Knights as the elite clones. Fact of the matter is, people still don't like the Prometheans. 343 have tried twice now to get the Prometheans right, and people still don't like them. And ultimately, that's making 50% of the enemy sandbox uninteresting, which is a pretty serious problem. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I think 343's priorities right now are making the Prometheans, that 50% of the enemy sandbox, fun to fight, not adding back an enemy that are completely different mechanically from anything else in Halo, with their own unique gameplay style, unique sound, and art design. It's honestly just too much to ask for in one game with Halo 6. It's just too much to put on 343's plate, and expect them to deliver it to a quality that sticks up to Halo's standards, especially if Halo 6 is coming out this year. If it comes out in 2019, well, that's a completely different ballgame, but right now I'm still running off the assumption that the game is coming out this year. That, and also it might be a little bit too early in the story to sort of fully reintroduce the Flood. Now, in regards to this, the way that I can see Halo 6 going is the story being about our fight back against the Created and Cortana, with us discovering in, like, maybe the final act or towards the end of the campaign that the Logic Plague is a thing and that the Flood are intervening in the galaxy and controlling Cortana in air quotes and all that stuff, with the regular ending being Cortana, or I don't know, maybe if you want to get extra spicy, the Gravemind announcing through Cortana that the final test for the mantle is here. Then the legendary ending shows loads of alien-looking Flood-controlled ships arriving in the galaxy through slipspace portals, and then the game ends. Now, obviously, none of that's real, at least yet. That's just my headcanon, that's just my bet as to how things might turn out. But ultimately, I highly doubt we're going to be fighting the Flood in Halo 6's campaign. In the multiplayer, it's all game. Maybe in Warzone, or maybe even a Horde mode. A Flood Horde mode is something that I've been asking for a long time, along with a lot of other people, sort of in Call of Duty Zombies vein, and I think that could be a really fucking cool thing. But as for the campaign, I really don't think we're going to be fighting them, at least. So, to round things off, my answer is both yes and no. I can't imagine a Halo 6 where they don't play a part in the story, and I think that it'll absolutely 100% bring them up and they'll be discussed. I just don't think we're going to be fighting them, at least yet. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Leave your predictions in the comments as to whether or not the Flood are going to return. I think my bet is probably the safest, but it's what I see as being most likely, so yeah, safe bets tend to be the best bets. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.